Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win, or you find a way to lose. Can't trust it. Y'all remember Public Enemy back in the day? Had that song, Can't Trust, Truss, but we gonna change it up and make it Can't Trust It. Rebel without a pause. Claressa Shields, man, look. Somebody hit me up. Now, I'm wide awake. I should have probably went live, but I'm tired, but all my kids are sleeping. I drank some coffee this evening. I should have never drank that shit. But I'm still tired, but I'm up, you know. And I didn't go live because I didn't think I'd show any enthusiasm. Because you ever been up but tired? Anyway, somebody hit me up and they were like, hey, look, what do you think? Seems like everyone's coming down on Claressa Shields. I think this is a great opportunity for her to get involved with Crisan because of what Claressa Shields brings to the table as a pro fighter and with her amateur accomplishments. Now, the person who contacted me, I didn't recognize the number, but they said there's somebody who kind of hangs out in the bushes on our chats. And y'all know I respect everybody. You respect me, I respect you. And for the ladies, I have a high tolerance because I just don't want to come out here and be rude to the women. But I understood what she was trying to say, but I didn't agree. So what I ended up telling her was, look, I hear what you're saying with Claressa Shields, but we got to be real. You can't come out here and allow Claressa Shields to get close to Crisan, to get involved in her camp. Anything beyond just Crisan saying, hey, thank you, or, you know, you're a great fighter. You know, just being respectful to each other, that's cool. But when you start talking about having Claressa Shields get involved with Crisan, well, now we got a problem. And I told her, I said, look, man, you just can't trust it. And I said, oh, no. Just like Chuck D. You could call me Hood D, right? And I had to go and explain to her. Now, this is what shocked me. Now, she had no idea about Claressa and her pattern of burning bridges. Now, I had to go and backfill her on Laila Ali. Now, see, she was shocked when I told her this because she thought Laila Ali just didn't like Claressa and just didn't want to fight Claressa. She felt Laila Ali was putting duck sauce on the fried rice. Now, you know it took everything in me not to, respond. That's like somebody talking shit about Eddie Murphy to Arsenio Hall. You know he gonna react, you know what I'm saying? So I just took a deep breath and let her talk, and then I came back and had to get her up to speed about how Laila was rooting for her in the beginning. I mean, even went on to kind of co-sign her and talk about how great she was. Went out, did an interview with her. I mean, I had to get her up to speed. All the way up until Laila Ali getting tired of the years of disrespect and Laila coming out here, man, and combination punching her with video 1 and video 2 and left Claressa Shields out for the count. And the person had no idea that Claressa's the one to be blamed for that relationship falling apart. You know, if Laila Ali wasn't headstrong, successful outside of boxing, transitioning to the civilian life, I say civilian life like she got out the military, but transition from being a professional boxer to being involved in food and health and the things she's doing now, maybe Laila could have gone a different path as far as being overly emotional, losing her cool, and being online, I would say overreacting to Claressa's toxicity. But the bottom line is, Claressa ruined that relationship. But Laila definitely is an Ali, and she handled Claressa with a lot of grace, with a lot of professionalism. And she just showed why the Ali way will always create separation between someone like Laila and someone like Claressa. And what Claressa has gone on to show us is that she's just angry, she's jealous, and she had no reason at all to attack Laila Ali. Now, when you have someone who has no reason to attack someone, but just attacks them, well, you need to steer clear from that person. Claressa, to this day, still making up stuff on Laila Ali. Lying on her. I'm not making that up. One thing I can throw out there right now. One thing. Still out here saying Laila Ali said, hey, 15 million, I'll fight you. I mean, we all see the damn videos. We know what was said. The whole world knows what was said. But to this day, Claressa, and also Papoose, even old Papa the rapper, instead of him saying, oh, no, 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 he like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Laila did say that. And hey, look at this. Hey, I'm gonna drop this gem on you, you know. We were willing to go to 20 million. See, nobody even knows that. Yeah, sure, Papoose. Y'all probably were going to go 20, 25 million, 30, 35, 50, 55, 60, 100, 200 million. We know. Number just going to get bigger and bigger the next time you talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So just don't even mention it. Because when it comes to the boxing audience, we know that we can't trust it. When it comes to the rapper Papoose and Claressa Shields. If they'll disrespect Laila Ali, who won't they disrespect, especially Claressa Shields? How about this? Alicia Baumgartner. What happened to that relationship, folks? Her and Alicia, the clips are circulating, seem to have a good relationship before. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Not sure who's to be blamed here with that relationship going left. But all we know is it went from what seemed to be two female fighters, very good, supporting each other, kumbayan, to all of a sudden they were beefing and on an airplane, and Alicia Baumgartner and Claressa were getting into it, and Claressa was trying to draw attention to her butt again. And then all of a sudden she's like, stop it, stop. God damn it, I said stop it. You know what I'm saying? So she showed us a little bit of who she really is. And could some of that have showed up with Laila Ali long before the world knew that Laila and Claressa were kind of, big sister, little sister? Maybe there were some things that were being seen even back then that just still hasn't come to light. I would think that fire inside has never been contained. And it probably showed up then. And I believe it showed up with Alicia Baumgartner. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Alicia Baumgartner a little bit chippy too. I ain't going to sit here and take it to the stupid. But I'm not aware of Alicia Baumgartner having ups and downs, nothing crazy with any other women. So Claressa, to me, is out here a rebel without a pause. That relationship is trash now. Claressa got Caroline Dubois in the mix. Like MC Hammer said, they put me in the mix. Hammer. You sent everybody running, man. Got Caroline Dubois in the mix. I'm just waiting to find out that Claressa Shields and Caroline Dubois have gone separate ways. I'm being honest with you. I'm just waiting to hear Claressa come out and say something crazy about Caroline Dubois. Because you look at Claressa and Laila Ali. I mean, when we sit back and think about it, Laila should have never, ever, ever got involved with it, but she didn't know. Alicia Baumgartner and Claressa back then probably should have never, ever, ever gotten involved with her, but she didn't know. It's crazy to see the pattern, right? But that's just two. But, the caller wanted me to buy into Claressa getting involved with Chrisean Rock. She feel that everybody on my channel is wrong. And I try to tell her under different circumstances, of course. If Claressa didn't have this negative spotlight on her, if she didn't have this pattern of destroying relationships, right? Now, this is just my observation. There's a pattern here, and I'm not finished. I'm going to keep talking. If that wasn't the case, I think everybody would agree. Of course, you have someone who has all these accomplishments, who's dominating as a pro. Of course, you probably would think it'd be a good idea for someone to be in that environment, in that climate, learning. But again, being around Claressa, you're not just dealing with boxing. You're dealing with a whole lot of drama. And it's exhausting. And I'll tell you one thing about Chrisean Rock. She doesn't need that, man. She's in a great space, positive people, positive support system. She doesn't need that. But the person was like, when I was talking to him, they're like, well, okay, I hear you, Hood. But with Laila, I ain't really sold on that because I do think she kind of, was throwing jabs at Claressa. I said, all right. I said, what about Alicia? She was like, no, Alicia talks trash. I said, no, go all the way back to when they first met. I said, what happened? She was like, well, I don't know. I just know right now Alicia said she kind of chirpy, she kind of mouthy. I'm like, all right. I said, so you don't want to buy into the Laila Ali, Claressa situation. You don't want to give Claressa any blame. With Alicia Baumgartner and Claressa, you don't want to give Claressa any blame. You're just looking at where we are right now and how Alicia is tired of all the bull crap and now she's coming out. I already told you I think she's a little bit chippy, but again, I'm looking at how Claressa was with Laila, then with Alicia, and look at the relationship between Laila and Claressa now, Alicia and Claressa now. It's non-existent. I said, all right, cool. I said, what about Shadesha Green? She was like, what about Shadesha? I said, they were all friends at a point in time, her and Shadesha. They go all the way back as teenagers, the Olympics and all that, the AIBA and all that. And she was like, so what does that matter? I said, what it matters is they were friends. I was like, and Claressa had every right to be hurt when Shadesha went to go spar and help somebody prepare to fight Claressa. But Shadesha kind of explained everything and she owned it. She said, look, I was wrong. Her situation, need money. But when she looked back at it now, if she could do something different, she probably would. But her and Claressa came. And, they had some back and forth and stuff online, and we saw that. But there was a big banquet. I think it was a Ring Magazine banquet. Anyway, they talked, resolved their issues, mended the relationship, and we're back on a really good rapport again. So they were on the same accord as far as how they were going to interact with each other and treat each other and communicate and how they're going to conduct themselves as black women and athletes in front of the world. So anyway, Shadesha Green, of course, I was definitely promoting the fight. The whole world was promoting the fight. And I was one who was always saying, I think Shadesha's got the kryptonite for Claressa, but Claressa should be the favorite in any fight because she's proven to be perfect. But I just think Shadesha got the kryptonite. Anyway, Shadesha goes and fights. We saw what happened at the end of the fight. Claressa celebrated. Claressa went in an online rant, disrespecting the hell out of Shadesha Green, someone who was supposed to be her friend, where the relationship had been mended. But Claressa didn't care. She showed us who she really is. That despicable person who showed up with the Laila Ali relationship, who showed up in the Alicia relationship, and now here it is, she showed us. Like there's no way you can misconstrue that. She showed us. Full display on her own live, just exactly who she was and what kind of monster she could be towards somebody when she just decides she wants to flip the switch. Now the thing that made that so bad, and at this time, the person, at this point, they're just listening to me. I was like, so she burnt that? She's like, I didn't know they had made up. I said, yeah. I said, Shadesha said that when she came and did an interview with me a couple months ago. I was like, see, you just hearing and seeing what you want. I said, see, I hear and see both sides. I'm fair. I can see if somebody being, doing Claressa wrong. I'll call that shit up. Some people don't like that about me, but I don't care. I said, but see, you as a Claressa fan, y'all don't want to see both sides. Y'all just want to see it one way. You can't do that. So this is where she kind of had a bit of an aha moment. She's like, okay, I see that. She's like, yeah, even I thought that was foul to see Shadesha kind of, falling off the stool and being taken out on a stretcher and for her to be celebrating it. I said, okay. I said, so now that's 3. You got Layla. You want to blame Layla? Cool. Okay, Alicia. You want to blame Alicia? Cool. I said, Shadesha. You going to blame Shadesha? She's like, nah. I said, so that's 3. But you're still saying that Claressa we should be encouraging Chrisean Rock to work with Claressa Shields, right? I said, that's what you're telling me, right? I said, all right, cool. Now remember, her and Shadesha go way back. We understand there was a little bit of turmoil in the relationship, but they were able to mend things. And even though things were mended, Claressa still decided to come out here and kick her friend when she was being carried out on the stretcher. I said, all right, what about Franchon Cruz? And she's like, oh, yeah. I said, okay, that's 4 now. We got the rebel without a pause here. I said, what you think about Franchon Cruz and Claressa's situation? She was like, all right, I ain't gonna lie, I'm following that one. She was like, I thought that was wrong. I said, okay. Why'd you think it was wrong? Because, I didn't want to put words in her mouth. I wanted to see if she really knew what was going on. She was like, because I follow your lives and I sit in the bushes. I don't say much, but I saw how with the whole buildup, you can tell there were like 2 friends that were putting on a fake promotion, but I thought it was going to be a real fight. She was like, but I thought the promotion was just fake. They were just going through the motions. They were going to break bread, make some money, but they were going to fight because they're fighters. She was like, but at the weigh-in, she like, I would have never anticipated Claressa shoving her. And she said, I believe that what Franchon said was someone told Claressa to push her. I believe someone told her that. She said, I think it was Papoose. And I believe that Claressa didn't want to do it. She's like, I believe Franchon. She like, and I saw with Franchon, I had the bodyguard or whoever that was fall on her, where she ended up hurting her knee, hurting her ankle. She said, I saw that. I said, okay, so what'd you think about that? She like, I thought that was wrong. I said, okay. So the fight happens. At the end of the fight, Franchon she's like, yeah, she looked upset. She looked emotionally dejected. She looked confused. She looked really hurt. And I said, okay, but Claressa, they both were talking after the fight, but Claressa was out there, talking a lot of trash. And it just got to a point to where Franchon felt Claressa was lying on her and served her a cease and desist. I said, now this right here, I said, Layla and Claressa, they don't go all the way back like that. Layla and Alicia, they don't go way back like that. Claressa and Shadesha go way back, but they had some ups and downs in the relationship. So I would say they don't go way back like that. But Claressa and Franchon, they go all the way back like that. And Franchon was one of the real true friends to Claressa. From an amateur all the way through her professional career. I said, but Claressa came out and threw away a 15-year friendship. I said, what you think about that? That she had to get hit with the cease and desist. And that she still to this day disrespects her friend. I said, she was just there on the show the other day, the Melissa Ford show, and talking about how she just couldn't miss and just bragging about beating up her friend. Now, my understanding, she's not even supposed to mention Franchon's name. So she violated the cease and desist. And by this time, she's like, no, I see what you're saying. I said, so now we got the rebel without a pause here. Now she out here talking about if Chrisean needs her, I'm here. Basically, I'm here to help you. I said, you see why everybody, they're like, hell no. I said, the people on my channel know. The first time I saw Claressa kind of do the same thing with Caroline DeBar in a post, I said, I took that and made a YouTube short, and I was like, this isn't going to end well for Caroline. I said, let's just watch it play out. It wasn't even a week later. The internet started to go crazy. I said, and maybe 3 weeks later, it was all over for Caroline. They were calling her GOAT Jr. They were insulting her, just doing what the internet does. And I don't think she deserved all of that. But she had picked up the Claressa Shields attitude, going viral, being the villain, being disrespectful. And the two of them were double teaming and trying to bully Alicia Baumgartner. Because again, Claressa did something she wanted, and she was using Caroline to try to get it. I said, but long story short, she didn't get what she wanted. I said, it's just like with the Laila Ali thing. She was trying to make Laila Ali as uncomfortable as possible hoping that she would get a fight, and she never did. Those doors closed, and so many other doors closed with Claressa not even knowing it, because you can't come out here and disrespect Muhammad Ali or his children. The Ali name is held in high regard and near and dear to people's hearts across all 7 continents. I said, so what you think? What you think now? And she was like, no, I understand. I said, yeah. Anything she touches, it's all bad. I said she was trying to use Caroline to somehow force a fight with Alicia, and then at the same time try to line up a fight for her and Shadesha. I was like, but at the end of the day, it's again something she wanted. And I said, I'm just thinking right now, when you look how she burnt the bridge with Layla, with Alicia, with Shadesha, with Franchon, I was like, I think Caroline Dubois is next. I said, and everybody's protecting Chrisean. Because Chrisean there's a transformation going on with her. And she's not fully transformed yet, but she's going the right direction. Nobody wants to see her lose. Nobody wants to see Chrisean Rock lose. Because she's putting herself out there. She's making herself very vulnerable to the public. You know what I'm saying? We all have learned, and I got up to speed in the last 48 hours. I already had a little bit of an idea, but I'm fully up to speed. She's been through a lot. But if anything, Claressa can learn from Chrisean. It ain't about Chrisean learning from Claressa. Nah. Claressa can't teach that girl anything. Chrisean got the team she needed right there in Baltimore. She don't need no Claressa Shields. But I'll tell you this, Claressa can learn from Chrisean, can't she? Chrisean was known for all the wrong things on this internet. Claressa is known for all the wrong things. One thing that the ladies talk about, they know Hood Champion don't really be saying too much about it, but the ladies, Claressa and her relationship with the papoose, the ladies, they'll never ever let that shit down, because they're like, that is no bueno. But you look at Chrisean Rock. Look at how she's transformed herself in the direction she's going. Claressa need to stop and look at her. And just from a distance, take notes and start working on herself. She doesn't need to be in close proximity with Chrisean. Because Claressa has a very dominant personality. And the last thing Chrisean needs is to have somebody that can bring that kind of influence on her. Now, if she were to come into a Chrisean Rock training camp or something, Chrisean would need to have her team close by to make sure it stayed professional, stayed inspirational, and something where Chrisean could benefit. But not allow no taking a ride there to White Castle to get a burger. Because, Chrisean said, boy, she was losing that weight. She needed them French fries and pizza, boy. She said that weight cut shit was not fun. I think somebody said she went from 200 to 165 pounds. That made me laugh, because I talk about that on my channel, how I used to cut from 205 to 160 for fights. So when I heard she went from 200 to 165, I was like, oh, I know. There's only so many damn rice cakes and tuna fish you can eat, goddammit, and drink water. Like that's what I used to do. How much of that shit can you do? So when I saw her there struggling, I was cracking up. I was like, I know that shit sucks, don't it? But it feels good when you actually get in the ring and you put the work in and you can perform. And that's why she got that big win. I was happy for her. That's why with Claressa, all of a sudden want to get close to her. Now that she's got the spotlight, she's inspiring people. She's marketable. Big time brands and different deals are coming her way. They're like, nah, Claressa, don't come over here. Stay away from Chrisean. Can't trust it. Rub it without a pause. And by this point, the individual I was talking to on the phone, she was like, I see what you're saying now. I said, yeah. I said, I'm being fair. I ain't making any jokes or nothing like I normally do. I said, I'm being fair. under any other circumstances, if Claressa didn't have all the drama, if Claressa was just out here as a fighter who kept her nose clean, it was just dominating, had a good attitude. I mean, they're human. You expect a little bit of shit talk. They're fighters, but not to the level of what Claressa is actually projecting. I said, I think 100% of people would agree that Claressa would be a good fit in anyone's training camp. The ladies, just to go in there and help and prepare, and whatever little tricks that she has up her sleeve that has resulted in her being so dominant in the ring. I said, but that's not what we're dealing with. I was like, no way. So by this point in the conversation, she understood where I was coming from. And even she said, oh, no. I said, you got it. And then we hung up. And then I was sitting there thinking, why do I have to break this down for people? Forget that you like Claressa as a boxer, right? Forget that. Just think about if it was your child. You know what I'm saying? Your child has come from, it's a lot, they had to overcome a lot of obstacles, you know what I'm saying? And they finally get themselves in a position to where they said, okay, I'm going to test myself. I'm going to challenge myself, and I want to see if I can accomplish this goal that I'm setting. And they go and accomplish the goal, and they're on top of the world, and the whole world is celebrating your child. Then you got this person who's just kind of slithering over there in the corner that brings a lot of bad energy. Let's be real. Would you want your child or family member to attach themselves to that? You're like, nah. Your child's on top of the world right now. Chrisean Rock is on top of the world right now. Why in the world would she need Claressa for anything? Y'all understand what I'm saying? It's one thing if Chrisean was trying to build and her team wasn't working out. I saw a post, some crazy post out there. I ain't going to share what I saw. If y'all know what I'm talking about, y'all can talk about it in the chat. But I did see somebody posted something. And what I'll say is this. The bottom line is Chrisean is with a team that has led her to the mountaintop. And she also has a lot to do with getting to the mountaintop and changing her life around in a major way. She doesn't need Claressa. Now, if Claressa did get involved with her, would things go sour? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But I would tell you, I remember sitting in meetings and we were trying to plan the flying hour allocation for the next year. And we knew that there were certain months where we had really good weather, like the spring and the summer. So during those months, we knew we could plan to generate a lot of sorties. And the pilots could get all their training and stuff in, a lot of their training done. And then during the winter months, you plan to fly less. So you had to kind of do your forecast and balance out your flying hours. You had to balance it out over the year. And you want to increase the flying during the months where you had good weather, and then you kind of scale back during those months where the weather was poor. So by the end of the year, however many training hours and however many sorties the pilots were supposed to accomplish, you would be close to meeting that goal, or you would meet that goal. And if you met it, then they had something called selling back, but that's getting too much in the weeds. But I say that to say this. Just like sitting in a meeting where you're planning for the next year, 2-3 years, you start looking at the data from previous years, and it'll kind of give you an idea on, hey, these are some things we've been able to do consistently. There's a pattern, so we're going to plan for that. When you look at Claressa, and you see what happened with Laila, with Alicia, with Shadesha, with Franchon, same thing. You can look at that and you can draw a pattern there and say, okay, when it comes to this woman getting close to women, the pattern shows me that that's a bad idea. You probably shouldn't allow anyone to get too close to this individual, because history is showing that those relationships don't work out and it results in drama. So figuring this out as far as Chrisean and Claressa in that relationship, that ain't no different from sitting back planning a multi-million-dollar fiscal year annual flying hour allocation. There's no difference. Common sense man can see that shit. So y'all just getting an idea of how my brain works. So that's how I see this shit. It's a pattern, man. I know I'm not the only one out here that sees it that way. I see the comments y'all leave. Y'all see it that way too. You know what I mean? It's not just me. So it is what it is, man. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I just hope if her team is smart, they keep her away from Claressa. And remember what I'm saying. I'm trying to think if there's any other athlete out there that Chrisean should stay far away from. Claressa for sure. I'm thinking about the other women. I don't know. I don't know of anyone else who I think would bring a negative spotlight to Chrisean. But if there is somebody, I'm sure you ladies would know, because y'all will put it in the comments. Because y'all be on it, boy. Y'all be on it. But anyway, let me get off of here. That coffee's starting to wind down. Just like they say, man, back in the day, we should be rocking that Public Enemy. Terminator X. Burn Hollywood Burn. Rebel Without a Pause. I know y'all know about them songs. But the one that everyone knows, Can't Trust It. But this, I dropped the S and added a T. Can't Trust It. Rebel Without a Pause is the Claressa Shields. Just stay away from Chrisean, man. Y'all keep cool. Y'all know what I'm in. Yo, I'm in the breeze.